Net Ingenuity would like to know if you could please repeat the steps back to start the Refine Edge tool. I don't know if you want to wait.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. We'll go back, and so what we're going to do here is deselect this, shut this off. To enter into the Refine Edge tool, you have to have a selection. Okay, you have to have a selection around something. Put a selection around what it is that you want to refine the edge on. Make sure I select the right layer here. There we go. In this case, I want to do the selection around him. I pick the background because it's a lot easier to select, and then I just go under Inverse, which is Shift-Command-I, and invert the selection. What's inside the selection is what I can affect. What's outside the selection is left alone. Then with that, I can either go under the Select menu and choose the Refine Edge. It'll be grayed out if I have no selection. Or I can simply have any one of my selection tools active, and in the control bar for any one of those selection tools, we get the button that enters into the Refine Edge tool. And then we jump right in. We're right back to where we started from.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Another question someone would like to ask about ACR Raw. I'm not really sure what that means.
ACR Raw?
Yeah. Can I ask about ACR Raw?
Yeah, it's Adobe Camera Raw. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I'm wondering if
what
the
the question
question means that they want to know more about if this sort of thing will work in a RAW file, in Adobe Camera Raw file.
I don't think Camera Raw actually has anything like this. I know it's got noise reduction, which is a new feature in CS5.
Yeah, maybe they could just clarify what the question
That would be
they
great.
were asking. That would be great. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. So there we go. Nice simple selection here with hard edges. And we've got one with both soft and hard edges there. And then we've got ones with really bizarre, hard to do. Fun stuff. And next week we're going to show you all the masking features and how we can go in after we've done all these great selections, go in here and clean it all up to make it look like we actually knew what we were doing. Mm-hmm. Isn't that great? Keep everybody coming back.
Excellent.
Have questions?
Well, we are, let's see. We are waiting for more questions to come through, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Someone did ask, how did you get this original image in white background, or how was that selected?
This particular one was shot on a white background.
Okay.
I've taken it out of its white background and put it back on its white background I don't know how many times. I mean, it could just as easily be done on a background like this, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if people think that's easy, then, you know, I'll put it on a different color background and we can send it to them.
Okay, we're just reading through some of the questions here.
I could take this and actually put it inside the flower arrangement here. Come on.
Someone says you were so clear there are no questions needed, Jason.
Wow. Okay, you know, that's kind of
That's a powerful
ridiculous.
statement.
Yeah. There we go. Now that's... I feel like on the fringe of going through and doing a scrapbooking class again.
I see a question we can relay. It's a pretty simple one. How do you invert a selection?
Oh, great way to invert a selection here. Once you have your selection active, just go into your Select menu and choose Inverse, which is Shift-Command-I or Shift-Control-I on the PC. Just takes everything that you have selected and inverts it so that
Great.
everything else is selected.
I have a question from Dory in the chat room. Is there a trick when working with dark hair on a dark background?
Yes.
Next week.
No. When you're doing anything like this with hair selection there, when you go in, do the best selection you possibly can, because that's going to help the Refine Edge tool be able to differentiate what it is between the dark hair and the dark background. There's a couple other things you can do as well, and here's one that you could try to go ahead and trick this into thinking that it's all what it should be. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select like a really dark color here, and I'm going to put it behind, not on him, I'm going to put it here. There we go. I'm going to put it on this, and I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to merge these two layers together. So this is coming on a dark background. Obviously, we have the little white spikes on it as well. But if you have trouble figuring out where the edges of the object is compared to the background here, do this. Duplicate your layer so that you have a duplicate layer completely, And what we're going to do is we're going to do what I tell you not to. We're going to adjust directly on the image here. And go in here and actually adjust it so that you get some contrast between what it is you're trying to select in the background. I don't care how it looks. What I'm going for is I'm going for contrast. I want to get contrast in and out of this. So since I've got kind of this dark purple background and kind of dark hair, it may be difficult for it to select. So I may go into hue and saturation here, and I may go in and kind of change the color a bit to see if I can get some type of shift there, desaturate it or saturate it a lot, and then go in, maybe use my levels here to brighten up the bright areas, darken up the darker areas, to get some contrast in between there, and then do my selection from there. Okay, I may even go in here with the with the red channel here and cut out some of the red here, or just bump it up so that I can get a lot of contrast between what it is that I'm trying to select. Now, obviously, we're not doing color correction at this point here. What we're doing is we're trying to get the most contrast that we possibly can. Once I do that, I can take my highly contrasted portion of my image, enter into the Refine Edge tool, and get a really good selection on that. And then once I got that selection, and if the selection was like this, I go in and refine my edge, and my selection ends up like this, I can turn this layer off that I was working on, go to this layer, and then apply that selection. Okay, I do that quite a lot when I'm working. In fact, this one was probably a really good example. One of the quickest ways to go in and select this, because if I had gone in here and used my magic wand tool and selected all these areas here and all these similar areas, it's going to go ahead and pick up a lot of these highlights through here, which is not what I wanted, but it's going to pick up these highlights all the way through. So I take my own advice. I duplicate my layer. I go in and I just put a whole bunch of contrast on it. And I just darken it way up. Okay? And even just knock down that to the point where everything gets pretty dark. Go into levels 2 if you want to and really darken up those areas. Okay? And any little highlight areas that are showing through, like these highlight areas that I don't want at all, I can just go in and I'm going to paint in black on those areas because I just don't want those to show up at all. Okay? Now, I didn't do this on my original image, obviously, but all these highlight areas here are just ways that I could use my magic wand tool to select, but I don't want to. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating a really quick and dirty selection here. See those areas? I'd do a little bit better edge on this as well. Get rid of those highlights there. And then I use this for my selection. So I could go into my Refine Edge, get that all done, and now I've just saved myself a whole lot of time, gotten rid of all the portions that I don't want to have selected here, and then I have a much better selection to start with right off the bat.
People in the chat room love this tip. That's really helpful.
So, in fact, I'll just run through it really quick here.
Great.
So I'm going to take this, and now I'm going to go in and select, using my magic wand, now I can select all the similar ones, invert it so I get just the real, go into Refine Edge. In fact, I'm going to turn this one off, go into my original one here, then go into the Refine Edge using that selection I did, and you'll notice that I don't get those little pockets in the corners as much because I put a lot of contrast there. So I took care of the contrast. I didn't let Photoshop take care of it, and this is a lot easier way. See how much of a cleaner edge I get from this that I didn't get before? This is a lot cleaner edge. So I'm going to use the Smart Radius there. I can smooth out that edge ever so slightly, clean it up, and now I've got a selection. It leaves just a little bit when I start smoothing things out, and it tries to fill those little areas in. But it just makes it that much easier to do.
I think Michael has a question.
Yeah.
For the keyboard shortcut junkies,
Yeah.
Can you tell us the name of the program that shows the keystrokes and shortcuts?
Oh, yes.
And does it work on every other program, or is it just Photoshop?
No, this is just a platform application. So it's called Mouse Pose, and it's like $16.95, and absolutely love it. You can do mouse clicks. You can do the Mouse Pose effects here that I can focus in on certain areas here. Any keyboard shortcuts that we have, we can do all keyboard shortcuts or just modifier keys, nothing else. You can also animate windows. You can highlight a window. So I could go and look at something here so it highlights the entire window instead of just focusing on a little portion of it. Really nice stuff.
Thank you.
I think they make it for the PC as well, but yeah.
also
Love
have
it.
a question from Kendra in Twitter. I don't think you asked this, Kenna. Does the selection tool help when your model person with hair is standing in front of a busy background? I know we had the busy background, but not the hair in front
Yeah,
of the busy background.
Let me show you this. Okay, we've got the guy in the background here. He's all clipped out. I'm just going to merge this entire thing together. I'm just going to flatten the whole image here. Okay, there it is. It's on a busy background. How do we go ahead and we do this? How do we make this work? Well, the same way you're going to do any other refine edge tool. You're going to get the best selection you can around the object and go from there. So if I select this and I get a pretty good selection of him around there, and kind of clean this up a bit. Now I'm going to go through and kind of take off these areas that I don't want, enter in the Refine Edge tool, and see how I do. So there it is. Let's go into the Refine Edge tool, and now I'm going to go in and do the Smart Radius here, and I'm going to see how this works. And it seems to do a pretty good job at picking it up. Not great. If I'm not getting the desired results out of this, then I'm going to go back in here and just hit the Save button there, didn't I? I'm going to go back in. I'm going to put a selection around this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as an example here. I'm just going to put this onto its own layer, so we have just this, and this is what I want to do. I'm going to take this, duplicate the layer, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start getting, adjusting the contrast here, so that I can much better define that contrast edge. And if that's the case, I'm going to jack up this so I can have that, and if necessary, I can even go in and paint this with white. Paint with white all along here to kind of clean up that edge. And because I don't need any of this, all I'm doing is using this for a selection, really. Get rid of that and try to get as clean of a selection edge as I possibly can. Because I've got some yellows in here, I can try to desaturate the yellows. I could go into my yellows here, and I could just go in and desaturate the yellows out of there. I had some greens too. I could desaturate the greens as well. Anything to get the contrast to be where I want it to be. Do I care what this looks like? No. All I care is contrast. I mean, so what that it was the size of his head right here? Yeah. But I'm trying to get a selection out of this, so no one's going to see this. But now I stand a much better chance of going in using the Refine Edge tool to get what it is that I want out of that busy background. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. I think too many people assume that because now that we have the Refine Edge tool, that you can only use the Refine Edge tool for doing everything. A lot of times you need to break it apart and work with each component separately to go in and get to where you want to be. Because it's all just pixels. You just have to figure out which pixels you want and which pixels you don't. And there's lots of different ways to define that.
Jason, can you show again how you transfer a mask from one layer to another?
Oh, yeah. I love that. Always a favorite. Let's see, layers here. Let's go. We'll cycle through this. How to go from one mask to, here we go. So if I had a mask on this layer right here, and here's my layer mask, and there's my other one, and I want to keep the same mask, and I want to put it on this one. I've got two masks here. There's two different ways you can do it. The difficult way, where you could actually go in, hold down your Command key, and Command-click on your mask, which is going to load your selection, because if you Command-click on a layer, a channel, a mask, or a path, it'll always create a selection. I can click on the new layer and then say, hey, make a layer mask out of this selection. I get that layer mask. That's the long way around. It sure is fun once you learn it, but you won't use that. The other way of doing it is just going in, holding down your Option key, and with your Option key held down, click on the mask and Option drag that mask from the one layer to your other layer, and it'll just park it right on there. And you can see when we do that, I'll bring it over here, when we hold this down, let's delete this, when we hold down our Option key, it's Option right there, the cursor's double. When we're dragging that, it's kind of hard to see, but the cursor's double. Let's zoom in really, really big here. Option, drag. See how the cursor's double? That shows us that we're copying. And that's true with anything in Photoshop. Option, drag is going to give you a duplicate.
George in the chat room, Jason, is then
Yes.
asking, can you then combine selections if you do it in pieces?
Of course. In fact, one of the things that I had done here was when I had originally done this reel, I didn't do it in any other way. I actually did it in paths here. And so I had created paths around here because this is, It's a circular reel with circular holes cut in it. And what better way to do it is than go in and do paths. So I've gone in because there's nothing better than paths here. And I just drew these paths around here. And I can copy those paths, put them in, just into the holes here. I want just these inner portions to be selected here. So I've drawn the path around the inner portions. Go to my Paths panel, hold down my Command key, and Command-click on my path. My path is active. Well, now, obviously, I don't want this portion here. And I did go in and I did create a selection around the main portion of the reel as well. So I had both the holes in the reel and also the border here. So I'm going to Command-click on the holes there, and I want to create another selection there that's going to take away those portions. Well, remember when we started off here how we have our new selection, our add to, our subtract from, and our intersect with selections here? We can do the exact same things when we're dealing with any type of selection, channel, path, mask, whatever it may be. And the keyboard shortcuts remain the same. Shift is always going to add to a selection. Option is going to take away from a selection. And in order to turn something into a selection, a channel or a mask, we hold down our Command key. Well, of course, if we just Command-click, it's going to turn it into a selection and our other selection goes away. So we're going to keep our Command key held down, and we're going to induce our Shift or our Option key. And we'll zoom in to show you this as well. So Command turns whatever we're clicking on into a selection. And so if we Command and hold down our Option key, it's going to create a selection and subtract from what's already selected. If we hold down our Command key and hold down our Shift key, it's going to add to what's already selected. So let's show you how that works. Hold down the Command key and the Option key. I want to make this into a selection and subtract from what's there. Command, Option, click. And we get our selection. I love that. One of my favorites. And it all shows you what's going on right here in the cursor. So the command, you can see how that turns into the selection. Command with your Option key held down is going to load that selection and subtract from any other selection. Command will select it. Shift will add to it as well.
I think we're winding down on the questions.
You've answered all the questions.
Well, selection seemed like such a simple thing, and they are. You just want to select those pixels that you want, and you don't select the pixels you don't want. It's that easy. Every single one of them is square. They're all there. They're all neatly lined up in a row. How hard can it be? And we've just shown you that it isn't at all.
Let's see. I did have a question that I had asked for a clarifying point from Kay, the chat room. And the question was, can Refine Edge tool pick up 1 pixel difference in pixels? So basically, is the Refine Edge tool reliable down to the 1 pixel contrast difference?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it is. Right. You still have to be the judge of that, though, because it's going to go ahead and determine based on several different factors. You have to be the judge whether or not that pixel differentiation that you want is going to be acceptable. Because we can expand and contract, we can feather, smooth, control the radius of all that, and that's why we have the Refine Edge, because you have to be the final judge of that. But yeah, it'll detect very, very minute changes in any of the pixels.
Great. Harry H. in the chat was asking, what is the difference between selecting for an adjustment and selecting for cutting, or is there a difference?
Not much difference at all, other than if you're going to take something out of the background, you want to make sure that you don't have any fringe pixels coming out. When you're doing adjustment, it all depends on what type of adjustment we're doing. If we're doing a very slight color shift in a very broad area, then selecting something in a very broad area doesn't make any difference. But if I'm going to have to do like a wholesale color shift here, and I want to, make these flowers blue, I need to make sure that my edge is going to be absolutely perfect. If I'm just going to saturate them just a little bit, I could probably do a selection really quick, go ahead and do a soft edge on there and make it 2 or 3% more contrasty. And do I have to worry about the edge? No, because you're not going to see a 1 or 2 or 3% shift in that little edge border there. Wholesale color change, absolutely. You're changing the hue completely. So it all depends on what you're using it for, because a lot of times I'll do very loose, sloppy selections because I know exactly what kind of loose, sloppy selection I can get by with.
All right. What do you think?
Well, I think it's great.
I think it's great too. This has been an awesome class.
I think that's a wrap for today.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Jason.
All right.
Thank
So
you, Jason.
next week,
Next week.
we are going to show you how to take all these selections that we've done and create masks out of them and refine those masks.